Hello everyone and welcome to i-nastava. My name is Ankica Šarić and I'm going to be your teacher today. This is an English lesson for the 4th grade high school students. In today's lesson, we are going to discuss our rights but also our obligations and duties. You're going to learn about different kinds of rights, as well as about some young people who dare to change and challenge the world. Based on the Declaration of Human Rights, you're going to create the Declaration of Student Rights for your school. And last but not least, besides rights, we all have obligations which you will classify according to different roles you have in your life. For this lesson, you will need your notebook, something to write with, and a smartphone or a laptop with internet connection. In order to do some exercises, you will have to pause the video. We all feel very passionate when it comes to our rights, but we mustn't forget our duties, our responsibilities, obligations. We will start with the rights first. What kind of rights are there? Pause the recording here and brainstorm your ideas. So, what kind of rights are there? Animal rights activists fight against cruelty towards animals. Nowadays, environmental rights are very popular because of climate change. Human rights guarantee our safety and freedom, and they concern all the people. There are also a number of different rights that are dedicated to specific groups of people. Children's rights and women's rights concentrate mainly on specific rights for these two groups. Just like minority rights, which show how developed our democracy is. Workers' rights protect us against being used by our employers. Another set of rights, consumers' rights, protect us against false advertising and unsafe products and services. Of course, there are many other kinds of rights that you might have mentioned and that are not here. You can check them with your virtual classroom teacher. Have you heard of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks? What are they famous for? They're civil rights activists. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, and that initiated the civil rights movement in the USA, led by Martin Luther King. What about Claudette Colvin? Have you heard of her? Not many people have, although she did something that changed the world. These questions will help you understand her importance. Read them before making notes on Claudette Colvin. After you copy the bit.ly link Claudette Colvin video or scan the code, pause the recording in order to watch the video and make notes afterwards. Let's check the answers. 9 months before Rosa Parks, Claudette Colvin refused to give her bus seat to a young white woman. She was inspired by what she had learned about Black history and the Constitution. She knew she had rights. By refusing to give up her seat, she was breaking segregation law as well as disturbing peace. She was also charged with scratching police officer's face, which wasn't true, but this charge stayed with her for 66 years. Although she didn't get the recognition she deserved, she did go into history for being one of the people who testified in front of the Supreme Court in a case which helped abolish the segregation law. She needed to have her record expunged because she still had a criminal record for assaulting a police officer. The civil rights movement made a conscious decision to choose Rosa Parks as the face of the movement because she was a respected middle-class woman, unlike Claudette, who was a loud 15-year-old pregnant out-of-wedlock girl with dark complexion. I hope this answers your question who Claudette Colvin is. A 15-year-old young woman who had courage to fight for her rights. There are a lot of young activists today as well. Have you heard of these young activists? Some of them are household names like Greta and Malala. What about Emma, who today goes by the name X? Or Divina, Scott, Amy, and Ella? They dare to speak up and fight for their rights and the rights of others. What exactly are their causes? This quiz will help you with the answers. Just scan the code or copy the bit.ly link Young Activists Quiz and match the activists with their causes. As you can see, their causes vary. Some are fighting for human rights, some for women's rights, some for children's rights, and some for environmental rights. These young people realized that there was something wrong, that their rights were violated, and they decided to do something about it. Google them and find out what kind of activities they did in order to fight for their rights and for the rights of those whose rights were broken. You can group all the activities together. You can pause the recording here and do an online research. These young people did many things. They have organized protests, marches, strikes. They have given talks in front of the US General Assembly as well as on TEDx talks. They have collected plastic waste, organized lessons to promote peace, drawn cartoons, film documentaries, written music and books. They have also organized charity in order to support their causes, as well as posted on blogs and social media. As you can see, the internet plays an important role in their activism. Hashtag activism, also known as social media activism, was inevitable since 3.6 billion people use social media. It all started with Twitter, but nowadays, all social media use it. What is it used for? Activists use it to raise awareness of their issue, encourage people to make a move, do something. Sometimes we are asked to sign a petition or to donate some money for a cause. Have you ever heard of these hashtag campaigns? They deal with some very important rights. Like environmental rights in hashtag Fridays for Future, or human rights in hashtag Black Lives Matter, the goal of which was to protest against police brutality against African Americans. Or children's rights in hashtag Bring Our Girls Back, the goal of which was to bring back high school students who were kidnapped by Boko Haram. Women's rights are addressed in #MeToo, where women started talking about being harassed, and #HeForShe, where men gave support to gender equality. #NeverAgain is a movement for gun control. #activism is not always seen as something positive. Word clicktivism comes to mind. People clicking on the like or share button without even reading the post. Still, one cannot deny its positive influence on the society either. All the things we have talked about in activism are based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The declaration was written after the World War II to make sure things like that never happened again. Can you name some of the rights the declaration talks about? These are the topics covered in the declaration: life, liberty, free speech, health, education, social security, cultural rights, economic rights, and social rights. I would like you to read the declaration now and retell it in your own words. You can record yourself retelling with the help of Autor, and then send the audio to your teacher. Scan the code or copy the bit.ly link UniDAC-int. You may pause the recording here in order to do the exercise. Our next task is going to be about your rights as a student in your own school. How do you make sure your rights are respected? Well, there's a student council which represents students in school. But you can also write a Declaration of Student Rights. What kind of issues would you include in it? Take the Declaration of Human Rights as an inspiration. Maybe something like this. Would you mention the way educational process is organized? Or maybe the way students are treated? What about health issues? Or maybe you have some other ideas, which would be great. I have put here just some possible topics you could use. Your declaration should look something like this. It should have the title at the top with the school name under it. After that, you should write the preamble. This is something like an introduction. In it, you should answer the question, why are you writing it? You can use some of the phrases offered here. Then, you have to decide which topics you're going to include into your declaration. You should have between 8 to 10 articles. Again, here are some phrases which can help you write your own articles. You can use any tool you want to in order to make a digital presentation of your declaration. And in the end, don't forget to sign it. You can pause the recording here and do the task. We have talked about our rights and the ways we can protect them. But what about our obligations? What are obligations? They are our duties, commitments, and responsibilities. They can be legal or moral. In this task, we are going to address some legal obligations we as citizens have. These obligations can be connected with contracts we sign or obligations we have as citizens of a country. You are going to watch a short video about the obligations of US citizenship. While doing it, you're going to make notes and compare their obligations to our obligations as Croatian citizens. Scan the code or copy the bit.ly link legal obligations video and do the task. Let's compare our answers. Unless you obey the law, you will be punished either by a fine or a prison sentence. You're also required to pay the taxes by April the 15th. When accused, you are entitled to a trial by a jury of your peers. So when summoned, you have to appear for a jury duty. School is obligatory for students between 5 or 6 and 16 to 18, depending on the state. American citizens have to be loyal to the system of government they have chosen. And they have to defend the country when called upon. In what way are we different from the Americans? You're right. We don't have jury duties, but everything else is pretty much similar. As you have seen, we can have obligations towards our country, but we can also have obligations towards ourselves, our family, our community, the world, and the humanity in general. Here are some thoughts on obligations. Hillary Clinton and Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about the obligations connected with the country, but while Hillary talks about our moral obligations towards the government, Arnold talks about the government's obligations towards us. Desmond Tutu, a Nobel Prize winner, talks about our obligations to provide education for the young, while Audrey Hepburn stresses our obligation towards those who are less fortunate than we are. And Charles Barkley, a famous basketball player, stresses the importance of sometimes just chilling out, with no obligations. You're going to chill out soon, but first, let's talk about your personal obligations. We play different roles in life. Here are some of the roles you teenagers usually play. Maybe you have some other roles as well. I would like you to think. What kind of obligations do you have when you play these roles? Pick 4 roles and name all the obligations you have to the people who you form a relationship with in these roles. What do you have to do in order to maintain a good relationship with them? You can check your writing with your virtual classroom teacher. Pause the recording here and do the task. And your last activity. Which 3 things have you learned today? What are the 2 things you would like to learn more about? And what is the one question you still have? Send your answers to your virtual classroom teacher. This is all for today. Till next time, goodbye.